Door-to-door sales is one of the hardest type of sales to do. My guest, Aaron Montgomery, spent over a decade in door-to-door sales. And not only did he spend a decade in door-to-door sales, he went from being an individual salesperson to building a territory to being a director of sales in such a short period of time. He dropped so many gems on the lessons he learned in door-to-door sales that he now applies to his current position doing robotics. You definitely don't want to miss this episode. So, Aaron, tell us about how you started your career and how you ended up to where you are today.
Started my career essentially getting into inbound sales with Wells Fargo, and it was very process oriented. They had everything planned out for us when we came on board. I was a very introverted person throughout high school and had a friend who was in sales, so I was a little jealous of seeing him grow personally and wanted to get into the sales sector as well. And Wells Fargo was the perfect initial spot for me to start off my sales career. Being introverted, they had a full script for me to follow along with, and I did really well at it and enjoyed talking to hundreds of strangers per day, but it was over the phones. So there was something that I was lacking in terms of skills that I was able to gain. And from my career at Wells Fargo for just 3 summers during college, I actually took a leap to go into door to door sales. And upon doing that, that's where I really experienced personal growth for the really to the maximum level in my first summer, and decided I wanted to take it very seriously and bring on others into that type of position and that type of atmosphere so they could grow as much as I was able to. And after that first summer, I was able to hire on 8 different sales reps from my college and become a little bit of a team lead for my summer sales team. And fortunately, our territory finished number 2 in the company. So it allowed me to really understand that not only could I see people succeed personally, but we could have some professional growth as well. And from there, I ended up staying in the door to door leadership for another 10 years, so 11 years total, before wanting to get into something a little more settled at home, so to say, and took a position with artificial turf company overseeing a couple territories in Southern California. And fortunately, I was able to grow that territory from about 275,000 in revenue to a little over a million in revenue, monthly revenue in 6 months by expanding the sales team.
Wow.
And from there, uh, I was part of that company for about a year before they promoted me to being one of the leaders to oversee the whole sales organization, which was quite a challenge due to the timing of the industry. It's a very highly competitive industry. Uh, Unfortunately, things didn't necessarily work out for that company in the long term. But with that gained experience, I was able to then get into robotics. So instead of being in the D2C space for sales specifically, I used my leadership past to find a position in B2B with an up and coming product that I'm very proud to work for, and an industry that is new to me, but at the end of the day, it's still sales and still leadership. So there's so many commonalities that the only thing I've really had to learn has been the robotics aspect to it.
Wow. I don't think I've ever met anybody who spent as long as you did in door-to-door sales. Usually it's I try that for a couple weeks, I tried that for a few months, I didn't make any money, I'm done. So when you think about the experience that you got and the real, because I mean, you got to really know how to sell. Like going door to door, like talk about cold calling. Forget that. Showing up at somebody's house unannounced. What are some of the lessons that you learned in that door to door sales environment that you still use today?
Oh, there's so many of them. I am highly encouraging of door to door for anyone out there because repetition is the father of learning. That's what I would always teach my
Mhm.
reps. And the beautiful thing about door to door is if you learn from each door, you're going to get better at a quick rate. So the more doors you knock throughout the day, the more opportunities you have to learn. The more opportunities you have to learn and reflect, the better you can get in sales. And there's a reason that there's tons of business leaders out there with at least some sort of door-to-door background, or they're going to take that that what they learn from sales and then go and create their own business and work for themselves. So repetition being a massive thing, along with positivity. You really have to stay super positive and confident. When you knock that door, that person that's behind the door, for one, I never cared if they were black or white, young or old, male or female, or anything in between. It's just about seeing if in the first 30 seconds I can make a connection that allows me to buy myself another 30 seconds with you. If I did my job correctly in the second 30 seconds, then I could buy 30 minutes with you. And that's where I could really impact your household in a sense. And teaching these skills, when you take essentially a college intern and you tell them, hey, you're going to walk down this street and you're going to get into 10 strangers' houses and you're going to have an opportunity to sell them a product. They look at you in disbelief because it's something they haven't done before. But as you walk down the street with them and you show them how to do it, they gain that little inspiration and that confidence that they can do it as well. And then when you turn them on over to doing it on their own, it's such a powerful thing for a leader to see them come back with that first sale.
Mm.
I mean, the steps along the way, getting in their first house, getting their first sale, and then their first big weeks, their first big months. It's just very empowering as a leader and made me really want to teach that to more and more reps.
So when you think about, so you were in the direct to consumer industry for a while, and then you transitioned to the B2B space. It seems like the salespeople that you had previously may have been their first sales job, or they're brand new to sales, right? So as you think about your current position, talk to us about the composition of your sales team, how, like, what that makeup is for you.
No, it's a fantastic question. So it's definitely a varied background, and that was something I was nervous when I did leave the door-to-door industry, being more of a veteran within it. Like you'd mentioned, not many people stay in it super long. So by the time I left, I felt a little older, and I was worried coming to more professional settings how I would handle older reps with different backgrounds than mine. Fortunately, sales is a language that a lot of people speak, and if they've heard of door to door sales, they know of the challenges. And when I say my background, it usually commands a little bit of a certain respect off the front end, but that doesn't mean they're going to maintain that level of respect. I still need to show up each and every day and earn their respect from there. So now my team is very different. I have people who've been in sales longer than I've been alive, and it's so fun to be able to connect with them. And when I bring on a salesperson who's never had any sort of background in sales, I have tons of experience within training and developing, so I have no issue doing that. And I'm a big into collaboration, so well, for example, at the turf company, when I would scale the team just from 2 to 10 in 6 months, I would do one veteran sales rep, one new sales rep, one veteran, one new. And because I was bringing people from outside of the turf industry into the turf industry, I was very open with them. Hey, this is going to be something we're going to collaborate and learn together. And we ended up being the top territory in the company within a year, which some people said would never happen. No, nobody would ever take down the top territory. So it was impactful to see that. And I'm taking those same types of principles over here into the robotics industry. And thankfully, my leadership has been a little patient with me as we continue to select the right people to build upon.
So I really want you to talk about this thing that I talk about so often. And you talked about hiring people from outside the industry and bringing them into the industry. So talk to me about the reasons why you have found that works best for you.
That's that's another very good question, and there's some nuance to it. When I first got into recruiting for the door to door, I was recruiting a lot of friends. Some of them did have some more sales experience, things like that, and I realized real quickly it was tough to use those relationships. I wanted to be very friendly with them, but also you have to be a little bit demanding of them, especially in a very high stress environment like commission only sales. So I learned, okay, from failure or successes, the ones with lack of sales experience were easy to teach new things. The ones with sales experience, you had to break them of old habits before you could teach them new things. Now I try to use both of those experiences to my advantage. And when I'm training a new rep, I always say to them that the first 2 to 3 days that I'm working with them, not only are they learning from me, but I'm going to learn from them. I got to learn their style of learning, whether they're going to be audibly, visibly, or what is it, kinetically through doing. And just taking those same principles, I've been able to develop sales teams where they feel very confident and they can get out in the field a little quicker aspect, and then I can move on to the next rep and continue to build.
Yeah, and I really like I don't think I've ever heard that strategy. A veteran, a newbie, a veteran, a newbie. So you're not just packing it with a bunch of people who have done this for 5 or 10 years, or with a whole bunch of people who've never done it before. And it balances. I think it does a really good job balancing the expertise level and unlearning bad habits. Like I literally tell people, so for me, that's something that I do in teams, but it's also something I advise companies to, right? Like
Hmm.
I like to be the first in. It's so much easier for me to convince you that this is great than for me to undo years of competitors that have been in there already talking about how great they are and selling you on these things. And it's the same thing with sales skills. So even if you hire a veteran salesperson that's from outside the industry, they have core sales skills, but they don't have all the bad teachings and all the bad things. And I have all these relationships that a person within the industry that has sales skills has.
Absolutely. And kind of the phrase I taught myself, and I'm sure it's pretty widely out there, is to me it's easier to paint a blank canvas than it is to paint over something. Now, the reason, kind of going back to that prior question, I didn't answer it the best, but the reason I like people from outside the industry with sales experience is exactly like you said. They won't have those negative habits or those limiting beliefs within whatever the product we're offering is. And statistics are a funny thing. I believe with statistic that product knowledge only makes up about 10 to 15% of the overall sales cycle. So I always tell people when I'm hiring them on, product knowledge experts aren't your top salespeople. It's the people who can create those connections, maintain those connections, and leverage those connections, and they're not afraid to ask for a sale. So when I have reps come on and they, especially now being in robotics, they're very complex and they think they need to know everything about the product, which of course I need to get them to a certain level of a baseline so that way they have the confidence to go out there and pitch the product. But I have to set that expectation on the front end that, hey, you just need to really understand the sales processes. And if you follow the processes the right way, we can build upon those. And the product is a dang good product. It's going to sell itself. So you really need to sell yourself. And then they're more likely to purchase from you.
And I like to say in these very technical areas that you operate in, that I've operated in, is we have smart people that know a lot about the product. I don't need you to do that. I need you to open the doors. I need you to build that relationship, ask the right questions, and then you bring that person in with you, and they can know everything. But a lot of times, especially when it's a more technical product, or even I find this when I am working with distribution sales teams, they're like, we have so many things, and I don't know them, and that makes their confidence lack, and it gets in their head, and that lack of confidence is actually what impacts the way that they show up and sell.
Absolutely. And that's very, very important. Confidence and eh, truthfully, when I'm hiring, I always want to make sure that a person is curious. They got to ask questions so I can be there to answer questions for them. And then on the back end, I want to be there as a leader to build their confidence, to let them know, like, hey, you're progressing at a rate that is on par with where we expect you to be. And to do that effectively, we have to ask the right questions because something that may be done for me might build my confidence. I can't assume that that's going to have to be reciprocated back to them in the same way. There's unique ways to build people's confidence as well. But if they don't believe in the product or themselves, they're not going to sell for you.
That's good. That's so good. And it's the mindset and the skill set, right? I need your mind to be in the game. I need you to have the sales DNA. I need you to have the will to sell. And that is more important than just I you know how to hunt, you know how to do this, you know how to do that. We use this within our organization. We use an evaluation tool. So I tell everybody I'm a recovering chemist, so I like data. So we use an evaluation tool for salespeople. And I recently evaluated a sales team, and one of the people who they said was their top reps actually had a pretty low sales percentile. And so when I drilled into the data, the tactical skills this person had were probably in the upper percentile, but their desire to do it, their commitment to the job, their outlook, their being comfortable dealing with rejection, those were so low.
Mm-hmm.
And I told the company, I'm like, this person is a flight risk because they don't believe in themselves. They don't
Mm-hmm.
think they can do it.
Absolutely, and I can probably attest to that. Persistence pays off. Going back to my first summer of door to door, I actually did terrible. I did not do very well. The only reason that I wanted to stay in it is the personal growth that I was able to see. There was not financial success for me to go off of. But my mom has always been a big inspiration to me, and she could see that I was growing personally, and I told her I liked it. I really wanted to go back and do it, and I wanted to teach others how to do it. And I remember actually then my second summer, I was sitting on a curb crying, and I called my mom, and I'm like, hey, like, I don't know if I can do this. And she's like, you don't quit, Aaron. You signed up for the whole summer, just do it. You just don't quit. And fortunately, I still remember that lesson, and I probably took it a little too serious, and it's like, hell yeah, I'm not going to quit. And now that persistence is the only reason I'm in this position. And as a result of having that experience with persistence, I'm very willing to pass that on to others. And I probably apply a level of patience with my sales reps that maybe not always my ownership or direct leadership wants. You know, they always want immediate results. But at the end of the day, I know that if I can incrementally grow their confidence and grow their skill set, that they're going to continue to get better and better. And as they get better, they're going to be more loyal to me as a leader and less likely to be that flight risk, like you mentioned.
So how do you develop or groom that drive within someone? Some people have it. They're like, I want to be better than the version of myself I was yesterday. But some people are like, this paycheck is good. Hitting my it's 75, 8% of my quota. I'm good with that. Like, how do you within your current team with the veterans and the new sales, the brand new to sales, how do you really motivate them and tap into that drive?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. So, to simplify it, I am a big time reader, or try to be. I go through spurts of it. And I remember reading a book that really, it was about, it was called The Motivation Manifesto. And essentially it came down to most people are either motivated by scarcity or freedom. Most people that get within sales are going to be freedom motivated. And that freedom doesn't always necessarily need to be money, it might
Mm.
be time. And the ways for me to understand what's really going to motivate the person that's working for me is just to simply get to know them outside of the sales talk that we're going to have. I like to understand what every rep on my team has for a passion. The reason being is if I can get them to talk about their product like they do about their passion, they're going to be much better and more effective in the field. And if I can learn about their passion and I can talk to them about, stuff outside of work, they're going to be much more motivated to work for me in a lot of ways. Because, like I said, typically through asking strategic questions, I can find out if they're freedom or if they're fear motivated. If they're fear motivated, then you need to really challenge them a little bit more. That's what they're looking for. And you can find out from their past. I always say, I'm full of phrases all the time, but those who don't know history are destined to repeat it. You can ask them, hey, why didn't it work out in the past for you? And they'll vomit to you exactly what their leadership, how their leadership failed them. And if you take notes and you pay attention, you just listen to them and you don't copy what failed them in the past, if you're something a little bit different, then you're much more likely to be successful with that person.
Those are some good tips. Freedom or scarcity. I love that. You're giving me lots of gems, Aaron. Lots of gems. Takes a lot for me to be like, oh, I've never heard that before. So, if a sales leader is listening and they want to tease out whether or not the person has that scarcity mindset or the freedom mindset, what is a question or two that they could ask to really draw that out of them?
Yeah, that's actually there's a lot of different ways. Me growing up in a super tiny town in South Dakota, now living in Las Vegas, it's pretty obvious I'm freedom motivated. I can ask a person in their background, hey, why are you here in Las Vegas now?
Mm,
Where did you come from? They usually will tell you right away. If they grow up locally, typically, statistically, they're not going to be as freedom motivated. And so that's when you can ask, hey, why did you leave your past experiences? Or along the lines of how did you feel about your prior leadership, and what ways were they able to motivate you? And they'll tell you, oh, I loved when my leader did this for me.
mm,
And again, they're also going to tell you the negatives as well. So I think it truly comes down to investing that time not only in training, but also during the hiring practice. I am obsessive with notes, and I keep my notes for the long term. So that way, and I love going back and looking at my old scouting reports. Being a big fan of football, growing up, I wanted to be a football coach or a football scout. So essentially, I treat each hiring call like my initial scouting report. Then while I'm doing my training for them the first week and I'm learning about them, same thing, going back to the scouting report and building off of it. So that way I always have that depth to go back to. And through that, you can really figure out the patterns of sales reps.
wow, that's awesome. I think that, really asking those questions and listening to their responses, right? Like when a question that I always ask is that I ask them, well, I share my purpose or my why, like why I do what I do. And now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, that's a freedom thing. But I ask them what's their purpose, what's their why, like why do you show up every day? Sales is hard. So what is the reason that you're here, right? And when you hear the things that people are saying, I think that you can put them in those two buckets. If they're saying, I'm doing this because, I grew up in poverty and I don't want my children to grow up in poverty, right? Or I'm doing this because I never saw my parents hold a stable job. And so I want to do that, right?
Mhm.
So just paying attention to what people are saying, I think really helps you understand their underlying motivations. And when we coach or when we teach or when we upskill, we should coach those things. We should make sure that we're speaking the language that they're actually stepping into.
Absolutely. And it's not always freedom motivated for sales. I'm thinking of one of my reps that I hired at the turf company. He was one of the first ones I brought on, and he was fired from his previous job for a stupid reason. And he was working for a really respectable sales company selling a big ticket item. He was hitting his numbers, but just a little mistake got him fired. And so I think that shifted his mindset from freedom to all of a sudden scarcity. In his entire first year that me and him were working together, he was just constantly like, I don't want to get fired. Am I doing this right? Now, as a result of him shifting into that mindset, after his first full year, going into his second full year, he ended up being the top rep in the entire turf company and winning a Rolex. So,
And it goes back to the confidence, right? Like
mm-hmm,
when I hear that, I call it workplace trauma. When
mm-hmm,
people come to you and they have that workplace trauma, or even a more clinical term that I don't like to throw around too much, but PTSD. A lot of people have that from their previous jobs, and it makes them operate in a little bubble. They're scared to take
absolutely.
risks. They're scared to do anything that's not by the book. They ask a million times, a million. Is this right? It's okay. Like over and over and over again. And I think that when we see somebody who has that previous trauma, that has that scarcity, for us as leaders, we have to really be gentle with them. And what our job is to rebuild trust. That's it. And it seems like you took a year rebuilding trust. And then once you rebuild that trust, he took off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's very well put.
So when you think about this, your team, and it sounds like you're building from some form of structure that was there. How do you like? What is the expectation that you have on a new sales rep? When should they be operating in 100% capacity?
It's another fantastic question. Again, being a reader, there's a book that really connected with me, and it talked about the top three sales reps traits when hiring and what to look for. And the two most important to me are curiosity and coachability. Um, Truthfully, I'm a Jordan fan, but I always respect Kobe Bryant. And there's a really cool interview with him where he's being asked how was he able to win an Oscar. I think it was an Oscar, and he's like, I'm just extremely obsessively curious. I would just find everyone around me doing things at a high level and I would ask them how they did it. And once he got into the filmmaking, I think it was Dear Basketball won him an Oscar right away. And people don't realize that about Kobe Bryant, that he just took the same curiosity level from basketball into making that film, and that's what made him successful. And then I always say you have to be curious, you have to ask questions, but you also have to be coachable. So what's the point in Kobe Bryant teaching you a jump shot if you're not willing to go out and practice it yourself? So that kind of leads into that repetition is the father of learning type of mindset. Hey, when ask a lot of questions, but don't be afraid to go out and apply those and work with me on that. And essentially, I know that if they're applying these two types of mindsets, they're going to be successful. It might not necessarily be in a 12-day or a 6-month time frame, but they're going to be successful if we can build upon those steps, those foundational steps. I know that I can get patience from my leadership with my sales skills on certain reps that are doing things the right way. They just might not be quite hitting those benchmarks at the very beginning because, again, in time, they will hit those benchmarks and take off.
That's awesome. I think that a lot of times what happens is they're unrealistic expectations that we put on new salespeople, right? And I think that it's really important to make sure that our expectations are in line with the complexity of our sales cycle, the complexity of what we're doing. Because if you're selling software for $20 a month, right? And that should be a really quick on-ramp period. But if you're selling robotics that has a 6-month sales cycle, why do you actually expect somebody to be hitting quota in 6 months if that's how long it takes to get one sale? So, like having a realistic expectation, and like you said, are they curious? Are they showing the right signs? Because I think oftentimes what we're looking for is numbers, we're looking for metrics, but we're not tracking behaviors. Like, what are the behaviors that we want to see in month 2 or month 3 or month 4?
Absolutely. Of course, we want to set a goal. Um, but truthfully, I'm more paying attention to their plan to hit that goal. Another cliche, a friend of mine, he put it out there, a goal without a plan is just a dream. So we have to formulate that plan, and you can see, you're always going to see your most successful sales reps are sticking to their plan, and their goals are a byproduct of sticking to it.
Yeah,
So
and it's the ability to craft a plan. Because I think that oftentimes when we don't put the expectation on them, then they don't do it. And if we never say this is what is required, then there's no output on the other side. So really setting the expectation, ensuring that they're meeting the expectation, and moving towards that thing each and every day is how you build successful sales teams that are not dependent on you for their every move.
absolutely, and thank you for bringing that word into play, expectation, because that is everything. And that starts from the very first minute you hop on a hiring call with them. You have to set the proper expectations for them. Um, Kind of drawing back to my door-to-door experience, when I very first showed up at an apartment in Minneapolis, Minnesota in 2011, there was 33 of us brand new reps from all across the nation. By the end of the summer, only 4 of us were still in that room. And when I would go around and ask other people, like, hey, why are you doing this? How are you doing this? They were told, hey, I'm going to make 100K super easily. It just isn't the truth. They were set false expectations. And that's probably, and really, my sales leader was actually in college to go to school to be a chiropractor. So he was there to make money for school, which respectfully, that's what motivated him. But it wasn't, it put a lot of people in a crappy position, and me being sensitive to other people, I did not want to put my team in those positions. So I was very big on, hey, I would tell everyone this is going to be the hardest thing you ever do. But when you set that proper expectation and you come in and you show them, like, hey, in day one, you can make a sale, it, it leads them to see that success, and then they want to build upon that success, and they're more likely to work harder for you and progress at a little quicker rate than if you simply tell them, no, you're expected to make 2 sales on day one, and they're scared to knock a door. They're not going to do it for you, and they're going to not believe in themselves, which all comes back to the confidence issues.
anytime there's somebody who reaches out to me, or they're complaining about their job or whatever it's happening, and they're like, well, should I leave, should I go here, should I do this, I tell them a couple things. Your first 6 months in any B2B sales job is hellacious, especially if you are a field salesperson. You're traveling a lot to learn your customers, you're traveling a lot with other people, you're going to the company headquarters. And secondly, it's about the devil you know or the devil you don't. So every company has its stuff, right?
Yep.
Every company has areas that they're not great at, and they have things that they are great at. So you get to decide, do you stay with the devil you know or the devil you don't? Because it's not going to be really rosy over there. And that made me think of, so your story made me think of that, is because I think a lot of times we do a disservice when we oversell and we tell our the potential candidates all the great things. This is how wonderful it's going to be. We hear something they didn't like at their last company. It's just like, getting in a relationship. Oh, your ex didn't do that. I do that really great. Oh, you like when they do that? I can do that too.
Yep.
And so people get in and they have misplaced expectations, and that leads to burnout, and that leads to high turnover.
Absolutely. No, it's very, very well put. And truthfully, it's a very good analogy to use. Yeah, relationships, because you spend more time with your coworkers, especially if you're in an office, than you probably do your partner. So if you don't take it as serious as you do your partner, they're going to feel that right away from their leadership, and they're going to be much more willing to bounce, and that time you invested in them is wasted. And I don't like to waste my time if I don't have to. I'd much rather spend a little more time and invest in my reps that are going to be there for the long haul, that I can build upon, so that way they feel happy and successful.
So tell me, where do you see your company, your team going in the next 5 years?
Well, we're in a fantastic industry. Robotics is pretty much the buzzword right now, and with what we're doing, we're on the forefront of some very innovative, really innovative products that people may take for granted in their everyday life for based off what they used to know. So it's a lot of fun. I really see continuous growth over the next 5 years. This is the way to put it. I don't want to set unrealistic expectations, but I know we're going to continually grow and continually get better and continually just improve.
So when you think about where you see your growth, what levers do you plan to pull? Is it adding more people to the team? Is it upskilling the team? Is it more technology? What do you think? What is your roadmap?
But yeah, a good question. It's a combination of more technology and more members of the team. Right now, with where robotics are at, it is not as accepted as it will be in the next 5 years. So, establishing the right baseline, these hires that I have right now, they are very important to me because I look at them as future leaders, and I need to develop them as future leadership potential as well, because I can't always take it on myself. And so it's laying the right foundation so that way the new reps right now can help the new reps 1 year from now, and so on and so forth. So that way in 5 years we can just continue to scale and have processes down that are reciprocated at a higher and higher level, and in consistently improving our performance metrics as well. Right now, being a newer company in some ways, or a younger company in some ways, our metrics are a little less defined than maybe past organizations I've been at. So as we grow, we will continue to define those metrics and improve the operational efficiency a ton as a result.
That's so good. And I like the each person on your team. And I always say it in this way, like, you should always be training your replacement. So as you grow, who is going to be that junior rep working alongside you? If you want to move into management, then who is going to backfill you? And even if you don't want to move into management, who's like a sales trainee or a junior salesperson that you can give some of your smaller accounts to, so they can help you. And when companies think about their sales organization in that way, they don't have gaps when people leave. Because a lot of times you have these gaps when somebody with a huge book of business either retires or moves to another company,
Hmm.
and you're like, man, how do we fill that? If you always think about who is that next person, who's going to fill that seat, you don't have those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. It was put to me a while back when I was a young leader and the door-to-door opportunity. They said that we could only scale as fast as we could find and develop leadership. So I've taken that same mindset beyond that, and that's how I look at it now. So when I am doing my interviewing processes, I do ask certain questions where I want to understand if they have those leadership capabilities, but I also don't want to put that on every rep because, as you mentioned, not every rep is looking to grow into a leader. But I want to provide that platform just in case they do. Because when they're sitting with you in training, they might tell themselves they don't want to be a leader. But who knows, 6 months down the line, life might happen in a way in which they didn't expect it. And all of a sudden, they will want that leadership aspect. So I do want to treat each and every rep as though they are going to develop into a future leader of mine. And even if and just give them that opportunity when it comes down to it. If they want to stay and just focused on their client's role, that's totally fine. But um, I like to pass on the message of let's develop leaders for sure.
I love that. Let's develop leaders. So, you have given us lots of gems about your career and the things that you've done throughout your life. Can you share with us an experience, either personally or professionally, that impacts the way that you lead?
Oh, probably comes down to the first time I realized in that I did want leadership. It was from a cliche. Like realized not that I wanted it, that I was going to take it, and this was kind of my motivation. And it's the phrase, and there's different variations of it, but it's help enough people in the world get what they want, and you can have anything in the world that you want. And I love that mantra because at the time I was like, hey, I'm selling TV services. I'll help people get more money. Then I'll get more money as a result. But then I realized as a leader that that message is even more important. And if you help your sales reps to desire to get the results they desire, if they don't stay with you and they move on to other opportunities, well, guess what? You're going to be an opportunity for them in the future, and they're going to reach out to you. And truthfully, now, I know it's a kind of interesting job market out there currently, but I wouldn't be worried on a personal level because I've helped enough people out there that if I had to dip into the bucket, I would be helped back as a result.
Yeah, I think that when I think about it, it's the seeds that you've sown, you don't reap in that field, but you're able to reap the harvest in other fields, right? And so if you do enough good is going to come back to you. Don't worry about yourself. Don't be selfish. I actually listened to a podcast this morning and they were talking about these leadership traits. And one of the things that they said is the best leaders, the strongest leaders don't have a me focus. They have a how can I serve? How can I help? What can I do to impact your life? And through that, that is why they have strong teams. That is why they have low turnover. Like that is one of the key things that I don't think a lot of leaders think about.
Yeah, that's I've heard the term servant leadership and I can't say I've like dove into what that's necessarily defined as, but that's what I believe in for myself. I'm there to serve my team, and as a result of getting more out of them, our team will do better. And a rising tide lifts all boats. So if I can get more out of a member of the team, then someone else is going to see that impact, and hopefully it trickles down, and the whole team gets better as a result.
Mm, that's so good. Serve before you sell.
Yes.
Serve and you'll get back so much more in so many different ways. One of the things that I do is when there's a person who's just starting a brand new business and they send me a message on LinkedIn or they say, hey, I have some questions. I'm like, oh, hop on my calendar. They're like, how much does it cost? I'm like, nothing. This is how I give back. This is what I do because I know I want to see better businesses, right? I want to see better small businesses for, especially for women and minorities. Like I want to give them the tools so that they can really succeed. And I don't get anything directly from them, but I see it in other ways in my life. And I think that you're doing a really great job, Erin.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And so as we come to a close, tell us what is the one best way that people can get in contact with you if they would like to.
Definitely available on LinkedIn. I'd say that's probably the easiest way to get initial contact with me. From there, stay a little patient. My travel schedule is a little crazy, and I do have priorities in terms of trying to be there for my clients and my team first. I do still look at LinkedIn a little strategically, but maybe not as strategically as LinkedIn wants you to look at it. Can add me on there, and we can always build upon that foundation.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, talent, and expertise today, Aaron.
Thank you as well.